On a night when the temperature dropped to 7 degrees, a woman sat dying in a bus shelter while a city of 8 million people walked past. Her husband had just thrown her divorce papers through a car window and driven away, leaving her with nothing, not even a winter coat. What she didn't know was that across that frozen street, 3 children were about to change everything. But before we get to that moment, you need to understand how someone ends up with absolutely nowhere to go. Stay with me until the end of this story, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Because what happened next, nobody saw coming. The bus shelter smelled like wet cardboard and urine. Lena Hart pressed herself into the corner of the plastic bench, trying to make her body smaller, trying to disappear into the advertisements for lawyers and bail bondsmen that covered the walls behind her. Her fingers had stopped hurting about 20 minutes ago, which she knew wasn't good. They'd gone from burning to aching to numb, and now they just felt thick and clumsy, like they belonged to someone else. The divorce papers sat beside her on the bench, getting damp from the snow that blew in through the open sides of the shelter. She should probably pick them up, put them somewhere safe, but the idea of touching them again made her stomach turn. Besides, what did it matter? Where was she supposed to keep them? In the pockets of the thin cardigan that was currently doing absolutely nothing to keep her warm? A bus rumbled past without stopping, its lit windows full of people heading home. Lena watched their faces, tired, blank, staring at phones, and felt something twist in her chest. 6 hours ago, she'd been one of them. She'd had a home to go to, a husband waiting, dinner in the fridge, clean clothes in the closet, a bathroom with her toothbrush in the cup next to his. 6 hours ago, she'd walked into their apartment during her lunch break to grab the file she'd forgotten that morning, the one she needed for her afternoon meeting. She'd been annoyed at herself for forgetting it, already composing the apology she'd make to her supervisor in her head. The apartment had been quiet. Marcus's car wasn't in the lot, which made sense. He usually worked until 6. She'd kicked off her shoes by the door, dropped her purse on the kitchen counter, headed toward the bedroom where she'd left the file on her nightstand. The bedroom where she found her husband in bed with someone else. The details were already getting fuzzy, like her brain was trying to protect her by blurring the edges. She remembered the woman's face turning toward her. Young, maybe 23 or 24, pretty in that fresh-faced way that made Lena feel ancient at 30. The woman had gasped, grabbed for the sheets. Marcus had said her name, Lena, shit, and jumped up, completely naked, already reaching for his jeans. She'd run. That was the embarrassing part. She'd run like a child, back through the apartment, grabbing her purse, shoving her feet into her shoes. Marcus had followed her, half-dressed, calling her name. But she hadn't stopped. She'd made it to the elevator, jabbed the button a dozen times, and when the doors finally closed between them, she'd felt something in her chest crack open. She'd driven around for 2 hours. Just drove. Through neighborhoods she didn't recognize, past strip malls and gas stations and schools. The radio off. Her mind completely empty. When she'd finally pulled into a parking lot, some random grocery store on the east side, Marcus had been calling her phone nonstop. 17 missed calls. A dozen texts that all said the same thing. We need to talk. Come home. Please. She'd answered the 18th call. Where are you? His voice had been tight, controlled. The same voice he used with customer service representatives who weren't being helpful enough. Does it matter? Lena, just come home. We need to talk about this like adults. Talk about what, Marcus? Talk about why you were fucking someone in our bed at 2 in the afternoon? Silence. Then, I didn't want you to find out like that. The laugh that came out of her hadn't sounded human. Oh, how did you want me to find out? Were you planning a nice dinner, maybe a PowerPoint presentation? Don't be like that. Don't be like what? Upset? Angry? Sorry if I'm not handling this with the maturity you expected. You're not making this easier. I'm not trying to make it easier, Marcus. I'm trying to figure out what the fuck just happened to my life. More silence. She could hear him breathing, could picture him rubbing his forehead the way he did when he was stressed. Finally, I want a divorce. The words had been so simple, so clean, like he was telling her he wanted Chinese food for dinner. What? I want a divorce. I've been thinking about it for months, Lena. This isn't working. We both know it. We both know it? I didn't know it. I thought we were fine. I thought we were happy. When were we happy? His voice had risen, frustration bleeding through. When was the last time we had an actual conversation that wasn't about bills or schedules? When was the last time you even looked at me like you gave a shit? I give a shit, Marcus. I'm your wife. On paper. But that's about it, isn't it? We're roommates who share a tax return. She'd gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles went white. Is this about the baby thing? Because I told you Dr. Chen said there are options we can try. It's not about the baby thing. It's about you. It's about us. We don't work, Lena. We haven't worked in years. So you fucked someone else. Yeah, I did. And you know what? It felt good. It felt like being alive again. When was the last time you made me feel like that? The words had hit like a physical blow. She'd actually gasped, her breath catching in her throat. I have the papers ready, Marcus had continued, his voice going flat again, businesslike. My lawyer already drew them up. You can have your lawyer look them over, but it's pretty straightforward. No kids, no shared property except the apartment, and you're not on the lease anyway, so that's easy. I'm not trying to screw you over. You can take whatever you want from the place. Your clothes, your books, whatever. But I need you to not come back tonight. Stay somewhere else. Give me a few days to get things sorted. Stay where, Marcus? Where am I supposed to go? I don't know. A hotel? A friend's place? Your sister's? My sister lives in Portland, and I don't have money for a hotel. Then I'll get you a hotel. I'll pay for a week. That should give you time to figure things out. I don't want your fucking hotel. Then I don't know what to tell you, Lena, but you can't come back here tonight. I'm serious. This is my home. No, it's my apartment. Your name isn't on anything, and I'm telling you that you're not welcome here anymore. She'd ended the call without responding, just hung up and sat there in the parking lot, watching people push shopping carts full of groceries to their cars, loading up bags, buckling kids into car seats, living their normal lives while hers disintegrated. That's when the first text came through. A photo. The divorce papers spread out on their kitchen table. Then another text. Come get these. She'd driven back. She didn't know why. Maybe because she needed to see them to believe it. Maybe because some stupid part of her thought if she just talked to him face to face, she could fix it. The apartment parking lot. Marcus's car in his spot. Her spot taken by a Toyota she didn't recognize, probably the girl's. She'd sat in her car for 10 minutes, trying to work up the courage to go inside. Finally, she'd texted him, I'm here. His response was immediate. Stay there. And then he'd come out, walked right up to her car in jeans and a t-shirt, no coat even though it was starting to snow. He tapped on her window. When she rolled it down, he'd shoved the papers through the gap. Sign them and send them back, he'd said. Use the email on the cover page. You've got 30 days. Marcus, there's nothing to talk about. It's done. Can I at least get my things? My clothes? Not tonight. I'll box them up and leave them with the building manager. You can pick them up later this week. Where am I supposed to sleep tonight? He'd reached into his back pocket and pulled out a small stack of $20 bills. Here, 200. Get a room somewhere. She'd stared at the money like it was a snake. I'm not taking your money. Don't be stupid. Take it. I don't want it. Lena, take the fucking money. No. He dropped it on her lap then, the bills scattering across her thighs and the passenger seat. Fine. Whatever. Do what you want. But you're not coming inside. I changed the locks anyway. You changed the locks? When? This afternoon, after you left. The efficiency of it had taken her breath away. He'd planned this. While she was driving around in shock, he'd called a locksmith. Probably called his lawyer too. Probably called the girl and told her to come back over. Coast was clear. You're really doing this, she'd said, and her voice had come out small, childlike. You're really just throwing me out. For just a second, something had flickered across his face. Something that might have been guilt. But then it was gone, replaced by that same flat businesslike expression. Yeah, he'd said. I am. I'm sorry it went down like this, but it's for the best. You'll see that eventually. Then he'd walked back inside. Just turned around and left her sitting there with divorce papers and scattered 20s and nowhere to go. She'd tried calling her friend Sarah, but it went to voicemail. Tried her friend Emma from work, same thing. It was a Thursday night. People had plans, routines, families. She'd sat in the parking lot for another hour, calling everyone she could think of, getting nothing but voicemails and "I'm so sorry, but tonight's really not good" texts. The snow had started coming down harder. The temperature was dropping. She could see it on her car's dashboard display. 28 degrees. 26? 24. She'd started driving again, looking for cheap motels, but every place she passed either had a no vacancy sign or looked like the kind of place where you'd wake up without your kidneys. The $200 Marcus gave her sat in the cup holder. She couldn't bring herself to touch it. Eventually, she just stopped, pulled into a bus stop, turned off the car, and sat there. The gas tank was at a quarter full. Her phone battery was at 15%. She was wearing work clothes, slacks, a thin sweater, her nice flats that were already wet from the snow. No coat because she'd only planned to be gone for 15 minutes that afternoon. The bus shelter was right there. At least it had a roof. That had been 3 hours ago. Now the snow was really coming down, thick and heavy, covering the street in white. The wind cut through the open sides of the shelter like it was nothing, like the plastic walls were just a suggestion. Lena's teeth were chattering so hard she'd bitten her tongue twice. She could taste blood. A couple walked past, bundled in matching Canada Goose parkas, laughing about something. They didn't even glance at the bus shelter. To them, she was invisible, just part of the city furniture. She looked down at her hands. The skin looked waxy, yellowish. She tried to make a fist and her fingers barely moved. This was bad. This was hypothermia bad. She'd read an article once about how it happened. Your body starts shutting down blood flow to your extremities to preserve your core. First your fingers and toes, then your arms and legs. Eventually your brain gets confused and you feel hot instead of cold. You start taking off your clothes. That's when they find you, frozen and naked. Because your dying brain convinced you that you were burning up. She should move, get up, find somewhere warmer. But where? The library closed at 9. The McDonald's down the street had kicked her out earlier when she'd tried to sit in a booth without buying anything. She had $200, but using it felt like admitting Marcus was right to throw her away like trash. Her phone buzzed. 8% battery. A text from Marcus. "Did you get a room? Just want to make sure you're okay." The laugh that came out of her was sharp, brittle. He wanted to make sure she was okay. The man who'd just destroyed her entire life wanted to make sure she was okay. She typed back with numb fingers, making 3 typos she had to correct. "I'm fine. Don't contact me again." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "Okay. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself." Like she was a casual acquaintance he'd bumped into at Starbucks. Like he hadn't just ripped her life apart. She closed her eyes. The cold was starting to feel distant now, like it was happening to someone else. Her thoughts were getting fuzzy around the edges. She wondered if this was what dying felt like. Not dramatic, not scary, just quiet. A slow fade to black while the world kept moving around you, indifferent. "Daddy, look, that lady doesn't have a coat." The voice was small, young. Lena opened her eyes. Across the street, through the falling snow, she could see them. A man and 3 kids. The man was tall, dark-haired, wearing an expensive-looking wool coat. The kids were bundled up like little Michelin men, puffy jackets, hats, scarves, the works. The smallest one, a girl maybe 5 or 6, was pointing at the bus shelter, at Lena. "She's really cold," the girl said, her voice carrying across the empty street. "We should help her." "Sophie, we can't just—" the man started, but one of the other kids, a boy a bit older, cut him off. "Dad, she's just sitting there, in the snow. We have to do something." The third child, another boy, nodded vigorously. "We can't just leave her." Lena watched this exchange like she was watching TV. It didn't feel real. The family stood there for a moment, the man looking at the shelter, at her, then back at his kids. She could see him thinking, weighing options, probably wondering if she was dangerous, crazy, on drugs. Then he was crossing the street, the kids following him, coming toward her. Lena tried to sit up straighter, tried to make herself look less pathetic. It didn't work. Her body wouldn't cooperate. The man reached the shelter and stopped a few feet away. Up close, he was younger than she'd thought. Early 30s, maybe. He had the kind of face that belonged on business magazine covers. Sharp jaw, clear eyes, the look of someone who'd never missed a meal or slept on a bus bench. "Are you all right?" he asked, and his voice was careful, gentle. The voice you'd use with a wounded animal. Lena's mouth didn't want to work right. I'm fine. You don't look fine. You're shaking. Just waiting for the bus. The buses stopped running this route an hour ago. Snow emergency. She hadn't known that. She looked at the street, at the snow accumulating. When had it gotten so deep? The little girl pushed past her father and stood right in front of Lena, peering at her with concerned eyes. You're freezing. Where's your coat? Sophie, give her some space, the man said, but the girl ignored him. Do you need help? Sophie asked. We can help you. We're good at helping. Daddy says so. I don't need help. The words came out slurred. Lena's tongue felt thick. One of the boys, the older one, spoke up. You're turning blue. Like, actually blue. That's bad. Ben's right, the other boy added. We learned about hypothermia in Scouts. Your lips are the wrong color. The man, their father apparently, crouched down so he was at her eye level. I'm Ethan Mercer. These are my kids. We live about 2 blocks from here. You're in trouble, I can see that. Let us help. Just for tonight. You can get warm, have something to eat, figure out your next step. No strings. Lena shook her head, but the movement made her dizzy. I can't. I don't know you. I know. And I'm not trying to scare you, but look at yourself. You're not dressed for this weather. You're showing signs of hypothermia. If you stay out here, you're going to end up in an emergency room, or worse. I have money. I can get a hotel. The lie came automatically. Okay. Where's your phone? Let's call one right now and get you a room. She looked down at her lap. Her phone was at 4% battery. Even if she called, she didn't have the energy to walk anywhere. Didn't have the clarity to figure out which hotel, which room, how to get there. Please, the little girl said, and her eyes were so earnest, so full of concern that Lena felt something crack in her chest. We have hot chocolate and blankets, and our house is really warm. You can sleep in the guest room. It has the softest bed ever, like sleeping on a cloud, Daddy says. I don't want to impose. You're not imposing, Ethan said firmly. My kids are right. We can't just leave you here. I couldn't live with myself. So please, just for tonight, let us help. Lena looked at them. Really looked at them. 3 kids staring at her with worry written all over their faces. A father who could easily have walked past, who could have ignored his kids' pleas but hadn't. She was so tired, so cold. Her thoughts were getting slower, harder to hold on to. Just for tonight, she heard herself say. Just for tonight, Ethan agreed, and the relief on his face was genuine. He reached out carefully, telegraphing the movement, and helped her to her feet. Her legs didn't want to work right. She stumbled and he caught her, one arm around her shoulders to steady her. Ben, grab those papers before they blow away, Ethan said, nodding at the divorce documents. The boy scooped them up, shaking off the snow. Can you walk? Ethan asked Lena quietly. She tried, made it 2 steps before her legs started to give out. Without a word, Ethan bent and scooped her up, carrying her like she weighed nothing. She should have protested, should have insisted she could walk. But she was so tired, and he was warm, and she couldn't remember the last time someone had helped her without wanting something in return. The little girl, Sophie, grabbed Lena's hand where it dangled. It's okay, she said seriously. Daddy carries me all the time when I'm tired. You're allowed to be tired too. The walk to their house was a blur. Lena was aware of movement, of the snow falling, of the kids chattering around them. The older boy, Ben, was asking if they should call an ambulance. The other boy, she hadn't caught his name, was wondering out loud if hot soup or hot tea was better for hypothermia. Then they were inside. The warmth hit her like a wall, so sudden and intense it was almost painful. Her skin started tingling, burning as feeling came back. Ethan set her down on a couch. Someone wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. Sophie disappeared and came back with a fuzzy throw pillow. For your head, she explained, tucking it behind Lena. The house was beautiful. That was Lena's first coherent thought as her brain started working again. High ceilings, hardwood floors, furniture that looked comfortable and expensive, art on the walls, plants that were actually alive and thriving. The kind of home she'd dreamed about having someday, back when she thought her marriage was solid and her future was secure. Ethan appeared with a mug. Tea, he said. Not too hot, just warm, small sips. She took it with shaking hands. He was right. It was perfectly warm, not scalding. She sipped it and felt the heat spread through her chest. The kids had arranged themselves around the couch. Sophie sat right next to her, tucked under the edge of the blanket. Ben and the other boy, Charlie, Ethan introduced him, sat on the floor, still staring at her with concerned eyes. "Better?" Ethan asked. Lena nodded. Now that she was warming up, the shaking was getting worse. Her whole body was trembling, her teeth chattering so hard she could barely hold the mug. "That's normal," Ethan said, seeing her panic. "Your body temperature is adjusting. Just keep sipping the tea. You're safe here." Safe. When was the last time she'd felt safe? "What's your name?" Sophie asked. "Lena." "That's pretty, like a flower." "I don't think Lena is a flower, Soph," Charlie said. "It could be. There's probably a Lena flower somewhere." "You're thinking of a lily. Lena, lily, they're basically the same." Despite everything, Lena felt the corner of her mouth twitch. These kids, they were so normal, so present, so unafraid of her. "Why were you sitting in the snow, what?" Ben asked, and Ethan shot him a warning look. "Ben, that's not—" "It's okay," Lena said quietly. She set down the tea. Her hands were still shaking, but she could feel her fingers again. "I didn't have anywhere else to go." "Why not?" Sophie asked with the blunt curiosity of a child. "Sophie," Ethan warned. "It's a reasonable question," Lena said. She looked at Sophie, at those wide, trusting eyes. "Sometimes grown-ups have bad days, really bad days. Today was one of those days for me." "Everybody has bad days," Sophie said wisely. "Like when I fell off the monkey bars and broke my arm. That was a really bad day. But then Daddy took me for ice cream after the hospital, and it got better. Maybe you need ice cream." "I don't think ice cream will fix this one, sweetie." "Ice cream fixes everything. That's what Daddy always says." "I said ice cream makes things better," Ethan corrected gently. "Not that it fixes everything." "Same thing." Lena felt tears prickling at her eyes. She blinked them back. She'd already cried so much in the car before the numbness set in. She didn't have any tears left, but she did. They came anyway, hot and fast, spilling down her cheeks. She pressed her hands to her face, mortified. "Oh no, she's leaking," Charlie said, alarmed. "That's called crying, dummy," Ben said. "I know what crying is. I just didn't know grown-ups did it." "Everyone cries," Ethan said quietly. He pulled a tissue from somewhere and pressed it into Lena's hand. "It's okay. You're okay." But she wasn't okay. She was so far from okay that she didn't even know what okay looked like anymore. 6 hours ago, she'd had a life. A boring life. Maybe not a perfect life, but a life. Now she had nothing. No home, no husband, no job by tomorrow probably, when she didn't show up because she'd spent the night freezing in a bus shelter. Nothing. "I'm sorry," she managed through the tears. "I'm so sorry. I shouldn't be here. I should go." She tried to stand up. Her legs still weren't working right, and she sat back down hard. "You're not going anywhere tonight," Ethan said firmly. "Not in this condition. Not in this weather." "I can't stay here. You don't even know me. I could be dangerous." "Are you dangerous?" Sophie asked, fascinated. "No, but then you're not. Problem solved." "It's not that simple, so—" "Yes, it is," Sophie insisted. "You're cold and sad and you needed help. We helped you. Now you're staying until you're not cold and sad anymore." "Sophie's right," Ethan said. "Look, I get it. This is weird. You don't know us. We don't know you, but my kids are right. We couldn't just leave you out there. And now that you're here, I'm not sending you back out into a blizzard when you can barely stand. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to finish that tea. Then we're going to get you some dry clothes because yours are soaked through. Then you're going to eat something. I made chili earlier. There's plenty. And then you're going to sleep in our guest room. Tomorrow, when it's daylight and you're warm and fed, we can figure out next steps. But tonight you're staying here. No arguments." His tone left no room for disagreement. Lena found herself nodding, too exhausted to fight. "Good," Ethan said. "Sophie, can you go find some of Aunt Kate's clothes? They should still be in the guest room closet." "Who's Aunt Kate?" Lena asked as Sophie scampered off. "My sister. She stays here sometimes when she's in town. You're probably about her size." Sophie returned with an armful of clothes, sweatpants, a hoodie, thick socks. These are the comfiest ones, she declared. Ethan showed Lena to a bathroom where she could change. She caught sight of herself in the mirror and almost didn't recognize the person staring back. Her lips were still faintly blue. Her skin was pale, almost gray. Her eyes were red-rimmed and hollow. She changed into the borrowed clothes. They were soft, expensive, the kind of casual wear that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. They smelled like lavender detergent. When she came out, the kids had set the dining table. Charlie was ladling chili into bowls. Ben was pouring water into glasses. Sophie was folding napkins with intense concentration. "Sit," Ethan said, pointing to a chair. Lena sat. A bowl of chili appeared in front of her, steam rising. Her stomach growled so loudly that Sophie giggled. "Eat," Ethan commanded, and Lena found herself obeying, spooning the hot chili into her mouth. It was good, really good, homemade with the kind of depth of flavor that came from simmering all day. The kids ate and chattered around her. They talked about school. Ben had a science project due next week. Charlie was struggling with long division. Sophie had learned a new song in music class. Normal kid stuff. Comforting in its ordinariness. Ethan mostly listened, occasionally asking questions, making sure everyone ate. He kept glancing at Lena, checking on her without being obvious about it. She finished the chili. Someone, Charlie, immediately refilled her bowl. She ate that too, surprised by how hungry she was. After dinner, Sophie insisted on showing Lena the guest room. It was on the second floor, down a hallway lined with family photos. Lena tried not to look too closely, but she caught glimpses. The kids at various ages, Ethan looking younger, happier. A woman in some of the photos, beautiful, laughing. The kid's mother, probably. The guest room was exactly as Sophie had described. A cloud of a bed with a thick white comforter, soft pillows, a reading lamp on the nightstand. The kind of room you'd see in a hotel magazine. "Bathroom's through there," Sophie said, pointing to a door. "And there's extra blankets in the closet if you get cold. And if you have nightmares, you can come find us. I have nightmares sometimes, and Daddy lets me sleep in his room, so you can too, probably." "Thank you, Sophie." "You're welcome. Good night, Lena." The little girl hugged her quickly, fiercely, then ran off down the hallway. Lena stood in the doorway of the guest room, trying to process the fact that this was real, that she was standing in a stranger's house, about to sleep in a stranger's bed because her entire life had imploded in the space of an afternoon. A soft knock on the doorframe. Ethan stood there, holding a phone charger. "Figured you might need this." "Thank you." He handed it to her. "Look, I know this is a lot, and probably terrifying, but I want you to know that you're safe here. I'm not expecting anything from you, neither are my kids. We're just trying to help." "Why?" The question came out before she could stop it. "Why what?" "Why are you helping me? You don't know me. I could be anyone." Ethan leaned against the doorframe, considering. "A couple years ago, I was in a bad place. Really bad. My wife died, cancer, it was quick, and I was alone with 3 kids and a company to run, and I was drowning, completely falling apart. One night, I was sitting in my car in a parking garage, just lost. Couldn't remember why I'd driven there. Couldn't remember where I was supposed to be. And this security guard found me. Old guy, probably should have retired 10 years ago. He sat with me for 2 hours, just sat there while I fell apart. Didn't try to fix it, didn't call anyone, just stayed. When I finally pulled myself together, I asked him why he'd done that. Why he'd wasted 2 hours of his shift on some stranger having a breakdown. You know what he said? Lena shook her head. He said, "Because everybody needs someone to sit with them sometimes. And today, I'm your someone. So I guess tonight, we're your someone." The tears came again. Lena didn't even try to stop them this time. "Get some sleep," Ethan said softly. "Tomorrow won't look quite so dark." He left, closing the door gently behind him. Lena plugged in her phone and crawled into the cloud bed. Sophie was right. It was impossibly soft. She pulled the comforter up to her chin and stared at the ceiling, trying to make sense of the day. This morning, she'd been married, had an apartment, had a routine, had a life she understood, even if it wasn't perfect. Tonight, she was divorced, homeless, and sleeping in a stranger's guest room because 3 children had refused to let their father walk past a woman freezing to death. She should be planning, figuring out her next move, where to go tomorrow, who to call, how to rebuild. But she was so tired, the kind of tired that went bone deep, and the bed was so soft. And for the first time in hours, she was warm. Lena closed her eyes and let the darkness take her. Lena woke to sunlight burning through her eyelids and the smell of bacon. For one confused, peaceful moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then it all came crashing back. Marcus, the divorce papers, the bus shelter, the cold that had settled into her bones like it planned to stay forever. She sat up too fast and her head spun. The guest room looked different in daylight, less like a hotel spread and more like an actual room someone had decorated with care. There were books on the shelf by the window, real books with cracked spines that had been read multiple times. A framed print on the wall showed a beach at sunset, generic but pleasant, the kind of room that said guest without screaming it. Her phone showed 10:30 in the morning. She'd slept for almost 12 hours. There were 6 new texts from Marcus, each one a variation of "Are you okay?" and "Please respond." She deleted them without reading past the previews. The borrowed clothes from last night were folded neatly on a chair she didn't remember putting them on. Someone must have come in while she slept. The thought should have bothered her, but it didn't. She pulled on the sweatpants and hoodie again, finger-combed her hair, and tried to make herself look less like someone who'd nearly frozen to death. The hallway was quiet. She could hear voices downstairs, the clink of dishes, a burst of laughter. Normal morning sounds. She stood at the top of the stairs, suddenly unsure. Should she just walk down, announce herself, sneak out the front door and disappear before anyone noticed? "She's awake!" Sophie's voice rang out from somewhere below. "I can hear the floor creaking. Hi, Lena." So much for sneaking out. Lena made her way down the stairs, following the bacon smell to a kitchen that was somehow even nicer than the rest of the house. White marble counters, stainless steel appliances, an island with bar stools where the kids were eating pancakes. Ethan stood at the stove, spatula in hand, wearing jeans and a faded college sweatshirt that made him look younger than he had last night. "Morning," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "You hungry?" "I should probably go." "That's not what I asked." Lena's stomach growled, answering for her. Sophie giggled. "Sit," Ethan said, pointing the spatula at an empty stool. "Pancakes or French toast?" "I really shouldn't impose—" "Lena." He turned to face her fully. "You're not imposing. You're accepting help. There's a difference. Now pancakes or French toast?" "Pancakes," she heard herself say. "Good choice," Charlie said through a mouthful of syrup. "Dad makes them with chocolate chips." Ethan slid a plate across the island. 3 perfectly golden pancakes, chocolate chips melting into the surface, a pat of butter on top. It looked like something from a diner menu. Lena sat and picked up a fork. The first bite was ridiculous. Fluffy, sweet, rich. She couldn't remember the last time she'd had a real breakfast. She and Marcus had been coffee and granola bar people, eating on the go, neither of them willing to wake up early enough to actually cook. "Good?" Ethan asked. "Really good." "Told you," Charlie said smugly. "Dad's pancakes are legendary." "Don't oversell it," Ethan said, but he looked pleased. Ben was watching Lena with the intense, analytical stare of a kid who'd been raised to notice things. "You look better than last night. Less blue." "Ben," Ethan said warningly. "What?" "She does. Last night she looked like a zombie. Now she just looks tired." "Thanks, I think," Lena said. Sophie scooted her stool closer. "Did you sleep okay?" "Sometimes the guest room is too quiet, and I can't sleep when it's too quiet. My brain gets loud. I slept fine. Best sleep I've had in a long time, actually." "See, Daddy? I told you the cloud bed works." They ate in comfortable chaos, the kids talking over each other, Ethan occasionally interjecting to prevent arguments or remind someone to use a napkin. Lena watched them, this little ecosystem of a family, and felt something twist in her chest. This was what Marcus had wanted, the thing she couldn't give him, a table full of kids and noise and mess and life. "So," Ethan said, refilling her coffee without asking if she wanted more, "what's your plan?" Lena set down her fork. "I need to figure that out." "You have somewhere to go?" "Not exactly. Friends? Family? My sister's in Portland. We're not close. And my friends—" She trailed off. "How did you explain that your friends were really just people you texted occasionally? Surface-level relationships that evaporated the moment you actually needed something. What about a job? Ethan asked. You work? I did. Administrative assistant at a medical supply company. I'm supposed to be there right now, actually. She pulled out her phone, saw 3 missed calls from her supervisor. I should call them. Use the study, Ethan said, pointing down a hallway. Second door on the left. Privacy. The study was exactly what she'd expected. Dark wood furniture, built-in bookshelves, a desk with a leather chair. She sat down and stared at her phone for a full minute before calling. Her supervisor, Margaret, answered on the second ring. Lena, where are you? I'm so sorry, Margaret. I had a family emergency. You were supposed to be here at 8. We had the Cardwell meeting. I had to run it myself. I know. I'm sorry. Something came up and I couldn't... You couldn't call? Couldn't text? This is completely unprofessional. Lena closed her eyes. You're right. I should have called. I'm dealing with some personal issues and I forgot. You forgot. Margaret's voice could have cut glass. Lena, I've been patient with you. I know you've been distracted lately, but this is unacceptable. I need people I can count on. I understand it won't happen again. Silence. Then, I think it's best if you take some time to sort out your personal life. Consider this a leave of absence. A leave of absence? For how long? Until you can commit to being here consistently. I'll email you the paperwork. The call ended. Lena stared at the phone, trying to process what had just happened. She'd essentially been fired, or suspended, or whatever corporate speak term they were using to avoid saying she was being pushed out. When she came back to the kitchen, Ethan took one look at her face and said, That bad? I don't have a job anymore, or I do, but not really. It's complicated. I'm sorry. It's my fault. I should have called yesterday. She couldn't finish the sentence. How did you explain that yesterday her brain had stopped working, that she'd been operating on pure survival instinct, that calling her job had been so far down the list of priorities it hadn't even registered? Sophie had finished her pancakes and was now drawing on a paper napkin with a purple crayon. If you don't have a job, you can stay here and help Daddy. He needs help. He's always stressed. I'm not always stressed, Ethan said. Yes, you are. You get that line right here. She pointed to her own forehead. When you're thinking too hard and you forget to eat lunch, Mrs. Chen has to remind you. Who's Mrs. Chen? Lena asked. The housekeeper, Ben said. She comes 3 times a week to keep Dad from living in total chaos. It's not chaos. Dad, you once wore 2 different shoes to a meeting, Charlie said. That was one time. It was last month. Ethan rubbed his forehead where Sophie had pointed out the stress line. Okay, so maybe I'm a little stressed. Running a company and raising 3 kids is not exactly a relaxing lifestyle. What kind of company? Lena asked. Software. Enterprise resource planning systems. Incredibly boring unless you're into database architecture. He's being modest, Ben said. Dad's company is worth like $2 billion. Lena nearly choked on her coffee. I'm sorry, what? Ethan shot Ben a look. That's not important. It's literally on the internet, Ben said. I Googled you last year for a school project about successful entrepreneurs. You did a school project about me? Yeah, got an A+. Lena was trying to recalibrate everything she thought she knew about this family. The nice house made more sense now. The expensive clothes Sophie had lent her. The casual way Ethan had offered help without worrying about cost. So you're rich, she said, because apparently her brain-to-mouth filter had completely stopped working. I'm comfortable, Ethan said carefully. He has a Porsche in the garage he never drives, Charlie offered. Charlie. What? You do. Ethan turned to Lena. Yes, I have money. Yes, the company's done well, but that's not why we helped you last night. We would have done the same thing if I was a teacher or a plumber or anything else. I know. I didn't mean... Lena stopped, frustrated with herself. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be weird about it. I'm just trying to understand why you're being so nice to me. Because you needed help, Sophie said simply. That's the whole reason. You needed help and we could help, so we did. That's how it works. Out of the mouths of 6-year-olds. The rest of the morning passed in a strange domesticity that felt both comforting and unsettling. Ben and Charlie had online school, something about a snow day turning into a virtual learning day. They sat up at the dining table with laptops while Sophie watched cartoons in the living room. Ethan disappeared into his study for a conference call. Lena found herself alone in the kitchen, surrounded by the debris of breakfast. She started cleaning without thinking about it, loading the dishwasher, wiping down counters. Felt good to have something to do with her hands, some purpose beyond sitting and spiraling. She was elbow deep in soapy water, washing the pancake griddle that didn't fit in the dishwasher when Ethan came back. "You don't have to do that." "I know. I wanted to." Small way to say thank you. He leaned against the counter, watching her work. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "What happened yesterday?" "You don't have to tell me if you don't want to, but it might help to talk about it." Lena kept scrubbing the griddle, focusing on a stubborn bit of burned-on batter. "My husband left me." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Turns out he'd been cheating on me. I found out in the most cliché way possible. Came home early, found him in bed with someone else. He had divorce papers ready to go, like he'd been planning it. Had his lawyer already lined up and everything." "That's brutal." "The best part? He kicked me out of the apartment, changed the locks while I was driving around in shock, told me I couldn't come back." She laughed, but it came out bitter. "I didn't even know you could do that. Just throw someone out with zero notice." "Legally, he probably can't. If you've been living there, you have tenant rights, even if you're not on the lease." "Yeah, well, I'm not exactly in a position to fight about it. No money for a lawyer, no energy for a court battle." "How long were you married?" 8 years? Together for 10. She rinsed the griddle and set it in the drying rack. "I thought we were happy. Not deliriously happy, but content. Stable. Turns out, I was the only one who thought that." "He give you a reason? Beyond the cheating?" Lena dried her hands on a towel, debating how much to share. But there was something about Ethan's face, open, non-judgmental, that made her want to tell the truth. "I can't have kids," she said quietly. "We found out 3 years ago. I have this condition, makes it basically impossible to get pregnant naturally. We talked about IVF, about adoption, but Marcus kept putting it off, said we'd deal with it later. I thought he just needed time to process. Turns out he was processing me right out of his life." "He said that? That he was leaving because you can't have kids?" "Not in so many words, but it was implied. He kept talking about how our life wasn't what he wanted, how we were just roommates, how he felt dead inside. And then I saw her, the woman he was with, young, probably fertile as hell, everything I'm not." "That's not fair to yourself." "Maybe not, but it's true." Ethan was quiet for a moment, then, "My wife couldn't have kids either." Lena looked up, surprised. "Your wife? But the kids are all adopted. Emma, my wife, she had cancer in her 20s. Before we met. The treatment saved her life but destroyed her fertility. When we got married, we knew kids would mean adoption or nothing. We chose adoption." "Oh." "She died 3 years ago. Different cancer, completely unrelated to the first one. Stage 4 pancreatic. Diagnosed in June, gone by October. Sometimes I still can't believe how fast it happened." "I'm so sorry." "My point is," Ethan continued, "your value as a human being, as a woman, as a wife, none of that is determined by whether or not you can have biological children. Your ex is an idiot if he thinks otherwise. You're just saying that to make me feel better. I'm saying it because it's true. Emma was the best person I ever knew. Kind, funny, brilliant. She made me better just by existing. The fact that she couldn't have biological kids was completely irrelevant to who she was as a person. And the fact that you can't doesn't define you either." Lena felt tears prickling again. She blinked them back. "How do you do it? Raise 3 kids by yourself?" "Badly most days. I rely heavily on Mrs. Chen, on my sister, on sheer stubbornness. The kids are amazing, which helps. But yeah, it's hard. Really hard. They seem well adjusted. They have their moments. Ben's in therapy because he has panic attacks. Charlie gets angry about things he can't control. Sophie still sleeps in my bed half the time because she has nightmares about me dying too. We're all just doing our best and hoping it's enough." The honesty was startling. Lena had expected platitudes, the usual "we're doing fine" deflection. Instead, Ethan was giving her the truth, messy and complicated. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "Because I think you need to hear that everyone's life is messy. Everyone's struggling with something. That picture-perfect family you saw last night, it's held together with duct tape and determination. We're not special. We're just trying to survive, same as you. Sophie wandered into the kitchen, dragging a blanket behind her. Daddy, I'm bored. Can we do something fun? What kind of fun? I don't know, something that's not cartoons. We could build that fort you've been talking about, Ethan suggested. Sophie's face lit up. Yes, the blanket fort. We need all the chairs and blankets in the whole house. Within minutes, the living room had been transformed into a construction zone. Ben and Charlie abandoned their virtual classes to help, dragging chairs and couch cushions into elaborate configurations. Lena found herself recruited to hold corners while Sophie directed traffic like a tiny general. No, that blanket goes on top. The blue one. It's the roof. You can't have a fort without a roof. What about structural integrity? Ben asked. If we put too much weight on this side, the whole thing will collapse. Then we need more chairs. We're out of chairs. Then we use books. Big books, like Daddy's boring workbooks. They raided Ethan's study, coming back with armfuls of technical manuals that became foundation supports. The fort grew organically, sprawling across the room, incorporating the couch, the coffee table, a standing lamp that Sophie insisted was a watchtower. Lena couldn't remember the last time she'd done something this pointless and fun. Marcus had been all about productive use of time. Every weekend had been scheduled. Errands, meal prep, catching up on work. Building a blanket fort would have been frivolous, childish. But watching these kids argue about pillow placement and blanket tension, seeing their absolute commitment to this temporary structure that would be torn down by bedtime, something in her chest loosened. Okay, Sophie declared, crawling into the fort's main chamber. Everyone in. We have to test it. They all squeezed inside. Lena, Ethan, 3 kids, and approximately 24 pillows. It was cramped and dark and ridiculous. This is the best fort ever, Sophie whispered. You say that every time, Charlie said. Because it's true, every time. They stayed in the fort for an hour, telling stories, playing some complicated game the kids invented involving a stuffed dragon and a quest for magical pancakes. Lena found herself laughing, actually laughing, for the first time in months. Eventually, hunger drove them out. Ethan made grilled cheese sandwiches while the kids continued fortifying their structure. Lena helped, buttering bread, flipping sandwiches, falling into an easy rhythm with him in the kitchen. You're good with them, Ethan said quietly. The kids. They're easy to be good with. Not always. They can be terrors when they want to be, but they like you. Sophie especially. She doesn't warm up to people quickly. She seems like she warms up to everyone. That's her personality. Sunny, optimistic, but it's surface level with most people. She's only truly herself with people she trusts. The fact that she's already recruited you for fort building is significant. Lena didn't know what to do with that information, so she focused on the sandwiches. After lunch, Ben had a meltdown about his science project. It had been due today, but with the snow day turning into virtual learning, the deadline had been extended to Monday. He'd been planning to finish it yesterday, but hadn't, and now he was spiraling about how he was going to fail, and it would ruin his GPA, and he'd never get into college. You're 12, Charlie pointed out. College isn't for like 6 years. It matters now. Everything matters now. If I don't keep my grades up, I won't get into the advanced program. And if I don't get into the advanced program, Ben, Ethan's voice was calm but firm. Breathe. What do you need for the project? A model of the water cycle. I have all the materials. I just haven't built it yet. Okay, so let's build it. It has to be perfect. It has to be done. Perfect is the enemy of good. They spread out materials on the dining table, poster board, markers, cotton balls, blue cellophane. Ben explained the requirements with the intensity of someone describing a military operation. Lena found herself helping, holding pieces while Ben glued, offering suggestions that he sometimes accepted and sometimes rejected with the absolute certainty of a preteen. 3 hours later, they had a model that showed evaporation, condensation, precipitation, and collection. It wasn't perfect. The clouds were lopsided, the ocean section had a visible seam, but it was done. Ben stared at it critically. It's not very good. It's great, Lena said. It shows all the required components, it's clearly labeled, and you can explain the process. That's what matters. You think so? I know so. I used to do grant applications for a medical research nonprofit. Presentation matters, but content matters more. You have solid content. Ben's shoulders relaxed fractionally. Okay. Thanks. That night, after the kids had gone to bed, Lena found herself alone with Ethan in the living room. The blanket fort still stood, a monument to the day's chaos. I should probably leave tomorrow, Lena said. I've imposed enough. Where will you go? I'll figure something out. Find a shelter, maybe. Or a hostel. I have that money Marcus gave me. Or you could stay here. Lena looked at him, startled. What? Stay here. For a while. Until you get back on your feet. Ethan, I can't. Why not? We have the space. The kids like you. And frankly, I could use the help. You don't even know me. I know you're going through something terrible, and you need time to rebuild. I know my kids responded to you in a way they haven't responded to anyone since Emma died. I know you helped Ben with his project without being asked, that you cleaned the kitchen this morning, that you're clearly a good person in a bad situation. That's not enough to invite someone to live in your house. It's enough for me. Lena shook her head. This is crazy. People don't do this. Strangers don't just take in other strangers. We did last night. That was different. That was an emergency. And this isn't? Lena, you have no job, no home, no support system. Where exactly are you going to go? What's your plan? She didn't have an answer. Here's what I'm thinking, Ethan said. You stay here. Guest room is yours. In exchange, you help out with the kids. Pick up from school, homework supervision, dinner prep, whatever you're comfortable with. Mrs. Chen is great, but she's only here 3 days a week, and I'm drowning in work. Having someone else here, someone the kids trust, would be huge. It's not charity. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement. You're describing a nanny. I'm describing help. We help each other. You get time to figure out your next steps without worrying about where you're sleeping or what you're eating. I get support with the kids. Everybody wins. This is insane. Maybe. But yesterday you were sitting in a bus shelter in a snowstorm with nowhere to go. Today you helped my son with his science project and made my daughter laugh so hard she snorted juice out of her nose. I'd call that progress. Lena wanted to argue, wanted to point out all the reasons this was a terrible idea. But she was so tired of fighting. And the alternative, shelters, hostels, couch surfing, felt impossible to face. Just for a while, she heard herself say, until I can find something permanent. However long you need. And I'll help with the kids, seriously help. Not just token stuff. Deal. They shook hands, formal and ridiculous given the circumstances. Lena felt like she'd just agreed to something that would either save her life or complicate it beyond repair. Maybe both. That night, back in the cloud bed, she stared at the ceiling and tried to process the last 48 hours. 2 days ago, she'd been married. Now she was divorced, unemployed, and living with a billionaire widower and his 3 adopted kids. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Marcus. Please just let me know you're safe. She typed back, I'm safe. Don't contact me again? His response came immediately. I'm sorry about how this happened. You deserved better. She stared at the message for a long time. Then she blocked his number and turned off her phone. Tomorrow she'd have to figure out the logistics, getting her things from the apartment, officially filing the divorce papers, applying for new jobs. Tomorrow she'd have to start rebuilding her life from scratch. But tonight, in this borrowed bed in this stranger's house that was starting to feel less strange by the hour, she let herself just be. Broken, lost, scared, but safe. And for now, that was enough. The first week passed in a blur of routines Lena had to learn on the fly. Wake up at 6:30 when Sophie appeared at her door like a small, insistent alarm clock. Make breakfast while Ethan showered and the boys argued about whose turn it was to use the bathroom first. Pack lunches. No peanut butter for Charlie, he was allergic. Ben only ate sandwiches cut diagonally. Sophie required exactly 3 apple slices, not 2, not 4. Drive them to school in Ethan's SUV because he had early meetings. Come back to an empty house that felt too big and too quiet. Mrs. Chen showed up on Wednesday and regarded Lena with the kind of polite suspicion reserved for people who appeared in households without explanation. You are the new nanny? She asked, setting down her cleaning supplies in the kitchen. Not exactly. I'm just helping out. Uh-huh. Mrs. Chen's expression suggested she'd heard that before and didn't buy it. Mr. Mercer, he needs help. Those children, they need structure. The last girl, she quit after 2 weeks. Said it was too much. There was another nanny? 3. None of them last. Mr. Mercer, he works too much. The children, they miss their mother. Is difficult situation. Mrs. Chen moved through the house like she owned it, which in a way she did. She knew where everything went, which rooms needed attention, how Ethan liked his shirts folded. Lena stayed out of her way and tried to make herself useful in the margins. By Friday, she'd developed something resembling a routine. Morning chaos, school run, empty house. She'd started using the quiet hours to apply for jobs online, but every application felt like screaming into a void. Administrative assistant positions that wanted 5 years of experience for $12 an hour. Receptionist roles that required you to already live within 10 miles of the office. Customer service jobs that promised flexible hours but required weekend availability. She was halfway through an application for a dental office when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Is this Lena Hart?" A woman's voice, professional, clipped. "Yes?" "This is Jennifer Wu from Daniels and Associates. We represent Marcus Hart in his divorce proceedings. I'm calling to schedule a meeting to discuss the settlement agreement." Lena's stomach dropped. "I don't have a lawyer." "That's fine. This is just a preliminary discussion. We'd like to go over the terms with you, make sure you understand everything before you sign." "I can't afford a lawyer." "You might qualify for legal aid. I can send you some resources, but regardless, you should come in and review the documents. Can you make Tuesday at 2? Lena agreed because she didn't know what else to do. After the call ended, she sat staring at her laptop screen, the job application forgotten. This was really happening. Her marriage was being dissolved by lawyers and paperwork, reduced to assets and liabilities. She was still sitting there when Ethan came home early, something he apparently never did based on the kids' shocked reactions. "Dad, are you sick?" Ben asked suspiciously. "No, I just decided to knock off early. Thought we could do something together." "Like what?" Charlie asked. "I don't know. What do you guys want to do?" The kids exchanged glances, clearly trying to figure out what was wrong with their father. Sophie recovered first. "Ice skating? Can we go ice skating?" "It's March, Soph. The rink is closed for the season." "Then movie. We could see that new animated thing about the talking dinosaurs." "I'm too old for talking dinosaurs," Ben said. "You're never too old for dinosaurs," Sophie argued. "Daddy, tell him." Ethan looked tired in a way Lena was starting to recognize. Not physically tired, but emotionally exhausted, like he was running on fumes and willpower. "How about we order pizza and watch something here?" he suggested. "Let Lena pick the movie." All 4 of them turned to look at her. Lena felt suddenly put on the spot. "I don't know what you guys like." "Something with explosions," Charlie said. "Something funny," Sophie added. "Something that's not stupid," Ben said, which was apparently his only criteria. They ended up with an old comedy from the 90s that Lena had loved as a kid. The kids had never seen it, which made her feel ancient, but they laughed in all the right places. Sophie fell asleep halfway through, curled against Lena's side like it was the most natural thing in the world. When the movie ended and the boys headed upstairs, Ethan carried Sophie to bed. Lena started cleaning up the pizza boxes and soda cans, falling back into her default mode of making herself useful. "You don't have to do that," Ethan said, coming back downstairs. "I know." He helped anyway, gathering plates, wiping down the coffee table. They worked in comfortable silence until everything was clean. "Can I ask you something?" Ethan said finally. "Sure. How are you doing? Really?" Lena had been getting some version of this question all week from Mrs. Chen, from the school receptionist who'd side-eyed her when she picked up the kids, from the barista at the coffee shop who'd made small talk while making her latte. But something about the way Ethan asked it, quiet, genuine, like he actually wanted to know, made her answer honestly. "I don't know. Some moments I feel okay, like maybe I can actually rebuild my life. And then other moments I just spiral. Start thinking about everything I lost, everything that went wrong. I got a call today from Marcus's lawyer. I have to go meet with them next week." "You need a lawyer too." "I can't afford one." "I can lend you." "No." The word came out sharper than she intended. "I'm sorry, but no. You're already doing too much. I can't take money from you. It's not charity, it's practical. You need legal representation." "I'll figure something out." Ethan looked like he wanted to argue, but didn't. Instead, he changed tactics. What did Marcus's lawyer say? Just that they want to go over the settlement terms, make sure I understand everything. That's code for we want to make sure you sign without fighting. Don't go to that meeting alone. I don't have much choice. You have me. I'll go with you. Ethan, not as your lawyer, as a friend. Someone who knows how these things work and can help you ask the right questions. That's it. Lena wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain some shred of independence, but the truth was she was terrified of that meeting, of sitting across from Marcus's high-powered attorney and trying to advocate for herself when she didn't even know what she should be advocating for. Okay, she said quietly. Thank you. The weekend brought a different kind of chaos. Ben had a soccer game on Saturday morning, which meant early wake-up and standing on cold metal bleachers watching kids chase a ball around a muddy field. Lena had expected to stay home, but Sophie had grabbed her hand and pulled her to the car, insisting she had to come because she was part of the family now. Part of the family. The words had hit Lena like a physical thing. Ben's team lost 3-1, and he was furious about it in the car ride home. Coach put me in defense again. I'm better at midfield. He never listens. Maybe he has a reason, Ethan suggested. Yeah, the reason is he doesn't like me. That's not true. How do you know? You barely watch the games. You're always on your phone dealing with work stuff. The accusation hung in the air. Ethan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. That's not fair, Ben. It's true, though. You missed my goal last week because you were on a conference call. I was there. I saw it. No, you saw the replay on Charlie's phone. It's not the same. They drove the rest of the way in tense silence. When they got home, Ben disappeared to his room and slammed the door hard enough to rattle the walls. Ethan stood in the kitchen, rubbing his forehead where the stress line appeared. He's not wrong, he said finally. I do miss things. I try not to, but there's always something at work that needs attention, some crisis that can't wait. You're doing your best. My best isn't good enough. That's not true. Lena, my 12-year-old son just told me I'm not present in his life. That's a pretty clear indicator that I'm failing. You're not failing. You're overwhelmed. There's a difference. Is there? She didn't have an answer for that. Sunday was quieter. Ethan took the kids to visit his parents, and Lena had the house to herself for the first time all week. She should have enjoyed the solitude, but instead she felt untethered, like she might drift away without the anchor of their noise and routines. She went through her email and found the settlement agreement Marcus's lawyer had sent. Opened it. Stared at the legal language that might as well have been written in ancient Greek. The dissolution of marriage between Marcus James Hart and Lena Marie Hart. Division of assets. Debt allocation. Spousal support. None. By mutual agreement. She was getting nothing, not the furniture she'd picked out, not the wedding gifts, not even her grandmother's quilt that had been on their bed for 8 years. She'd signed a prenup when they got married. Marcus had insisted, said it was just a formality, that his parents' lawyer had recommended it. She'd been 22 and in love and had signed without really reading it. Now it meant she walked away with exactly what she'd brought into the marriage, which was basically nothing. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Hey, it's Sarah. Emma Chen gave me your new number. Heard about you and Marcus. I'm so sorry. Want to get coffee? Sarah. Her friend from college, the one who'd introduced her to Marcus at a party a decade ago. They'd been close once, but had drifted after the wedding, the way friendships do when life gets busy. Lena typed back. Coffee sounds good. They met Monday afternoon at a place downtown. Sarah looked exactly the same. Dark hair and a messy bun, colorful scarf, the kind of effortless style Lena had always envied. You look different, Sarah said, hugging her. Bad different or good different? Just different. Tired, but also, I don't know, something else. They ordered lattes and found a corner table. Sarah immediately launched into questions about the divorce, about where Lena was staying, about what happened. Lena gave her the abbreviated version, the cheating, the divorce papers, the bus shelter. Wait, you slept in a bus shelter? Lena, why didn't you call me? I did. You didn't answer. Sarah pulled out her phone, scrolling through her call log. Oh my God, you did. I was at dinner with Brian's parents. I saw the missed call, but I figured, I don't know. I didn't think it was urgent. I'm so sorry. It's fine. It's not fine. You could have frozen to death. But I didn't. This family found me, the Mercers. I'm staying with them now. She explained the arrangement, the guest room, helping with the kids, the temporary nature of it all. Sarah listened with increasingly wide eyes. So you're living with a random family you met on the street? They're not random, and they needed help. Lena, that's insane. You don't know these people. I know them better than I knew Marcus, apparently. Sarah leaned back, studying her. You seem, I don't know, different, more settled than I expected. I'm living in a stranger's guest room with no job and a divorce in progress. I'm the opposite of settled. Yeah, but you're not falling apart. I expected you to be a mess. No offense. None taken. I was a mess. I think I still am. But the Mercers, they're good people. Being around them, around the kids especially, it helps. Gives me something to focus on besides my own disaster. What are they like? The kids? Lena found herself smiling. Handful. Ben's the oldest, 12, super intense about everything. Gets panic attacks when things feel out of control. Charlie's 9, angry at the world because his mom died and he doesn't know what to do with it. Sophie's 6, sunshine personified, but she has nightmares. They're all kind of a mess in their own ways, but they're also amazing, smart and funny and resilient. And the dad, Ethan, Lena paused, trying to find the right words. He's doing his best, works too much, worries constantly, definitely stressed beyond belief. But he loves those kids more than anything. You can see it in everything he does. Sarah was giving her a look Lena couldn't quite read. You like him? Of course I like him. He literally saved my life. No, I mean, you like him. What? No, it's not like that. Uh-huh. Sarah, I just got divorced. I'm not interested in dating anyone, especially not the guy whose house I'm living in rent-free. I'm not saying you should date him. I'm just saying there's something in your voice when you talk about him, a softness. That's gratitude, not attraction. If you say so. They talked for another hour, catching up on Sarah's life, her job at an architecture firm, her boyfriend Brian, their plans to move in together. Normal life stuff that felt foreign to Lena now. When they parted ways, Sarah hugged her tight. Call me if you need anything, okay? Even if it's just to talk. I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me before. It's okay, really. That night, Lena helped Charlie with his math homework. He was struggling with long division, getting increasingly frustrated with each wrong answer. I hate this, it's stupid. Why do we even need to know this? We have calculators. The point is to understand how it works, not just get the right answer. But I don't understand how it works. It doesn't make sense. Okay, let's try a different approach. What if I'm just dumb at math, that's the problem. You're not dumb, you're frustrated. There's a difference. Everyone else gets it. Ben got it when he was my age. Even Sophie understands basic division. Sophie is 6 and doing addition. That's not the same thing. Charlie threw his pencil across the room. I can't do this. Lena picked up the pencil and set it back on the table. Yes, you can, but we're going to take a break first. Come on. She led him to the kitchen and made hot chocolate, the real kind with milk and cocoa powder, not the instant packets. They sat at the counter in silence while he drank it. My mom used to make hot chocolate when I got mad, Charlie said quietly. Yeah? She said emotions are like weather. They pass. You just have to wait them out. That's good advice. I miss her. The words were so simple, so bare that Lena felt her chest constrict. I know you do. Dad says it gets easier, but it's been 3 years and it doesn't feel easier. It just feels different, like there's this hole that's always there. Maybe it doesn't get easier. Maybe you just get stronger, learn to carry the hole. Charlie considered this, then nodded slowly. Yeah, maybe. They went back to the homework. This time, when Lena explained the division process, he listened. They worked through 3 problems together before he started doing them on his own, his confidence building with each correct answer. See, Lena said, not dumb, just needed a different way of looking at it. Thanks, Lena. When Ethan came home an hour later, she told him about the homework session, about Charlie's breakthrough. He looked so relieved it was almost painful. I'm terrible at helping with math. I understand it, but I can't explain it in a way that makes sense to them. You're better at this than I am. I'm not better. I'm just fresh eyes. No, you're better. Charlie actually listened to you. When I try to help him, we just end up arguing. Because you're his dad. Dads aren't supposed to be good at homework help. It's like a law of nature. Ethan laughed, the sound surprised out of him. Is that what it is? Absolutely. Kids rebel against parental assistance on principle. But random house guests? We're neutral territory. You're not a random house guest anymore. No? No. You're... He paused, searching for the word. You're part of this. Part of us. Tuesday came too fast. Lena put on the one professional outfit she owned, a black pencil skirt and white blouse she'd grabbed during her one trip back to the apartment building to collect her things from the boxes Marcus had left with the manager. Ethan wore a suit, looking every inch the billionaire CEO she kept forgetting he was. The law office was downtown, sleek and modern, all glass and chrome. Marcus's lawyer, Jennifer Wu, met them in a conference room that probably cost more to furnish than Lena made in a year. Ms. Hart, thank you for coming in. And you are? She looked at Ethan with polite inquiry. Ethan Mercer. I'm here as moral support. Jennifer's expression suggested she didn't love this development, but wasn't going to fight it. She laid out the settlement terms in language that sounded almost reasonable until you looked closely at what it actually meant. Lena got nothing, owed nothing, walked away clean. This seems pretty one-sided, Ethan said mildly. I'm sorry, Mr. Mercer, but this is a private matter between Miss Hart and my client. I understand that. I'm just observing that Ms. Hart was married for 8 years. She contributed to the household, to the relationship. The prenup she signed may be legally binding, but there's usually room for negotiation in these situations. Jennifer's smile was pure shark. The prenup is airtight. Ms. Hart signed it willingly. There's no basis for renegotiation. What about emotional distress? My understanding is that Mr. Hart ended the marriage quite abruptly and left Miss Hart in a vulnerable position. That's not grounds for additional compensation under New York law. They went back and forth like this for 20 minutes, Ethan asking questions in that calm, relentless way he probably used in business negotiations, Jennifer deflecting with legal jargon. Lena sat there feeling like a spectator at her own life. Finally, Jennifer turned to her directly. Ms. Hart, do you have any questions about the agreement? Lena looked at the papers in front of her. The dissolution of her marriage reduced to 12 pages of single-spaced text. What happens if I don't sign? Then we proceed to court, which will be expensive and time-consuming for both parties. The outcome will be the same. The prenup is enforceable. You'll just waste time and money fighting the inevitable. But I could fight it. You could try, but without legal representation, you'd be at a severe disadvantage. And frankly, there's nothing to fight for. The prenup is clear. Ethan leaned forward. Ms. Hart would like to take these documents to review with her own counsel. She'll be in touch with a response within 30 days. Jennifer's expression suggested this was not the smooth signing she'd anticipated. Of course, but I should mention that my client is eager to finalize this matter and move on with his life. I'm sure he is, Lena said, finding her voice. He seemed pretty eager about that when he threw me out with nowhere to go. Ms. Hart, I understand you're emotional. I'm not emotional. I'm angry. There's a difference. In the elevator going down, Lena felt like she might throw up. Did I just make this worse? She asked. No, you stood up for yourself. That's never a bad thing. But she's right. I can't afford to fight this. And even if I could, the prenup means I'd lose anyway. Maybe. But you don't have to make it easy for him. You don't have to just roll over and sign whatever he puts in front of you. They drove back in silence. Lena stared out the window at the city sliding past, thinking about choices and consequences, about the naive 22-year-old who'd signed her future away because she was in love and trusting. That night, after the kids were in bed, she found Ethan in his study, working on his laptop. Can I ask you something? She said from the doorway. Sure. Why are you doing this, helping me with the divorce, letting me stay here, all of it? What's in it for you? Ethan closed his laptop and looked at her directly. Honestly, the kids need you. I need you. You've brought something into this house that's been missing since Emma died. What? Balance, warmth, another adult who actually gives a damn. Mrs. Chen is great, but she's staff. My sister visits once a month if we're lucky. It's been me and 3 kids in survival mode for 3 years. And then you showed up and suddenly Ben's science projects get done without screaming matches. Charlie does his homework without throwing things. Sophie falls asleep happy instead of crying. That's not nothing. They did that before I got here. Not like this, not easily. You're good with them, Lena, better than I am sometimes. And before you argue, yes, you are. I'm their dad. I love them more than life itself. But love doesn't mean I'm good at the day-to-day stuff. You are. I'm just doing what needs to be done. Exactly. Without resentment, without making it a big production. You just do it. And the kids respond to that. They've been through hell, lost their mom, got stuck with a dad who works too much and doesn't always know what he's doing. They need stability. You give them that. For now, but I can't stay here forever. Why not? The question hung in the air between them. Because this isn't my life, Lena said finally. This is borrowed. All of it. The room, the routine, the family dinners. It's yours. I'm just passing through. What if you didn't have to be? Ethan, I'm not proposing anything weird. I'm just saying that this arrangement, it's working for all of us. So why does it have to be temporary? Because eventually I'll get my act together. Find a job, find my own place, move on. And if you don't want to? Lena didn't have an answer for that. The truth was, she'd been happier in the last 2 weeks than she'd been in years. The chaos of the Mercer household, the constant noise and need and life of it, felt right in a way her quiet, sterile marriage never had. But that didn't mean she belonged here. I should let you work, she said, backing out of the study. Lena, she paused. Just think about it. That's all I'm asking. Think about staying, not as a guest, as part of this family. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and fled to her room. That night she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the house settling around her. Sophie's white noise machine humming through the wall. Footsteps in the hallway, probably Ben getting water. The distant sound of Ethan's voice, talking on the phone even at 11 at night. She thought about Marcus, about the years she'd spent trying to be the perfect wife. Quiet, accommodating, never demanding too much. And he'd still thrown her away like she was disposable. She thought about this house, these kids, this man who kept insisting she was helping when really they were the ones saving her. She thought about what it might mean to stay, not temporarily, not as a favor or an arrangement, but actually stay. Build something real here in the wreckage of her old life. The idea terrified her, but it also felt like the first real choice she'd made in a decade. Not something she was falling into or being pushed into. Something she could choose for herself. She was still thinking about it when she finally fell asleep, Sophie's words echoing in her head. You're part of the family now. Maybe she was. Maybe she wanted to be. The decision to stay wasn't dramatic. There was no moment of revelation, no grand gesture. It happened gradually, in small increments, until one day Lena realized she'd stopped thinking of the guest room as temporary and started thinking of it as hers. It started with the divorce papers. She signed them 3 weeks after the meeting with Marcus's lawyer, sitting at the kitchen table while the kids were at school, and Ethan was locked in his study on back-to-back conference calls. Her hand shook as she wrote her name on the signature line, but when it was done, she felt lighter, like she'd cut away dead weight. She mailed them that afternoon and didn't tell anyone. It felt private, final, the end of one chapter that she didn't need witnessed. The next shift came when she stopped applying for jobs. Not consciously at first, she'd just skip a day here and there, tell herself she'd get to it tomorrow. Then a week would pass. Then 2. The truth was she'd fallen into a rhythm at the Mercer house that felt more purposeful than any administrative assistant position ever had. Mornings were controlled chaos, making sure everyone ate breakfast, finding lost homework, mediating arguments about whose turn it was to sit in the front seat. School drop-off, then the quiet hours when the house was hers. She'd started deep cleaning in a way Mrs. Chen appreciated but never said aloud, just a nod of approval when she found the baseboards scrubbed or the kids' bathroom actually organized. Afternoons meant pickups, homework battles, snack negotiations. Charlie had stopped throwing his pencils, mostly. Ben's panic attacks had decreased in frequency, though they still happened when tests loomed or soccer games went badly. Sophie had nightmares less often, though she still ended up in Lena's bed at least twice a week, small and warm and trusting in a way that made Lena's chest ache. Evenings were dinner, sometimes takeout, sometimes meals Lena actually cooked from recipes she found online. She'd never been much of a cook during her marriage, but the kids were enthusiastic taste testers and didn't care if things came out slightly wrong. Bedtime routines, story time for Sophie, reminders to actually brush teeth for the boys. Then the house would quiet, and Lena would find herself in the living room with Ethan, both of them too tired to talk much but comfortable in the silence. It was domestic in a way her marriage never had been. Marcus had wanted a showpiece life, the right apartment, the right furniture, the right image. The Mercer house was lived in and chaotic and real. 6 weeks in, Ethan's sister Kate showed up unannounced on a Saturday morning, letting herself in with a key and calling out hellos as she dragged a suitcase through the front door. "Surprise! I'm between apartments and thought I'd crash here for a few days. Hope that's... Oh." She stopped when she saw Lena coming down the stairs in pajama pants and one of Sophie's oversized t-shirts with a sparkly unicorn on it. "Hi," Lena said awkwardly. "I'm Lena. I'm Asharan." The mysterious house guest Ethan mentioned exactly once and then refused to discuss. Kate was in her late 20s, tall like her brother, with the same sharp features but softened by a wide, easy smile. "Nice to meet you. Those are definitely Sophie's pajamas." She insisted I needed unicorn pajamas, said it was non-negotiable. "That sounds like Sophie." Kate dropped her suitcase and extended a hand. "I'm Kate, the annoying younger sister. Ethan probably told you I'm irresponsible and flaky. He said you visit when you can." "Diplomatic. I like you already." Kate looked around the house, taking in details. "Wow, this place is actually clean, like really clean. Did you hire a second housekeeper, Ethan?" Ethan had appeared from the kitchen, coffee mug in hand. "Lena's been helping out." "Helping out? Is that what we're calling it?" Kate's expression was amused, curious. "How long has she been helping out?" 6 weeks, Lena said. 6 weeks of living here, and my brother didn't think to mention it when we talked last week. Interesting." "It's not interesting," Ethan said. "It's just an arrangement that's working out." "Uh-huh." Kate was still looking at Lena, assessment in her eyes. "So, mysterious Lena, what's your story?" Over coffee at the kitchen table, while Ethan got the kids ready for Ben's soccer game, Lena gave Kate the abbreviated version. The divorce, the bus shelter, the kids finding her, the temporary arrangement that had stopped being temporary. Kate listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from curious to sympathetic to something Lena couldn't quite read. "So you're basically Mary Poppins," Kate said finally. That's not what this is. You literally showed up out of nowhere and started fixing everyone's problems. That's peak Mary Poppins energy." "I'm not fixing anything. I'm just helping." "Same thing." Kate refilled both their coffee mugs. "Look, I'm going to be honest with you because that's kind of my thing. My brother is terrible at asking for help, like pathologically bad at it. The fact that he not only accepted your help but actively wants you to stay, that's huge. I've been trying to get him to hire a live-in nanny for 2 years. He always says he can handle it." "He can handle it." "No, he really can't. He's drowning, Lena. Has been since Emma died. He just refuses to admit it because admitting weakness isn't in his DNA." Kate leaned back in her chair. "Those kids need stability. They need someone who's actually present, not just passing through between business trips. If you're providing that, even temporarily, then you're doing something important. It's not temporary anymore. I mean, it started that way, but now you're part of the family." "Yeah, I can see that. The house feels different, lighter, maybe, less like a mausoleum." "It wasn't a mausoleum." "It kind of was. Everyone doing their own thing in separate corners, no real connection. Don't get me wrong, Ethan loves those kids fiercely, but love and actual daily presence are different things. He's been running on guilt and adrenaline for 3 years. Lena thought about the stress line on Ethan's forehead, the way he worked until midnight most nights, the exhaustion that seemed bone deep. "I'm not Emma," she said quietly. "I'm not trying to replace her. No one's asking you to. Emma was Emma, irreplaceable, gone, mourned. But that doesn't mean this family stopped needing what she provided. Structure, warmth, someone who actually knows what the hell they're doing with kids. You're filling that gap. That's not replacement, that's survival." Before Lena could respond, Sophie came barreling into the kitchen, already wearing her soccer spectator outfit, jeans, a puffy jacket, and a homemade sign that said, "Go Ben," in crooked letters. "Aunt Kate, you're here!" She launched herself at Kate, who caught her with practiced ease. "Hey, Munchkin, I like the sign. Very professional." Lena helped me make it. She said we needed glitter. Glitter is always the right choice. The soccer game was cold and muddy and went into overtime. Ben scored the winning goal in the last 30 seconds, and the entire family, plus Kate, went crazy in the bleachers. Lena found herself screaming and hugging strangers and feeling a rush of pride that made no logical sense. He wasn't her kid. This wasn't her family. Except it was starting to feel like it was. That night, after the kids were asleep and Kate had claimed the guest room, displacing Lena to the couch, Ethan found her scrolling through her phone in the dark living room. "You don't have to sleep on the couch. We can set up the office with an air mattress." "The couch is fine." Lena: "Really? It's fine. Kate needs the guest room. I can handle a few nights on the couch." Ethan sat down on the other end of the sofa. "Kate cornered me during the game, asked a lot of questions about you." "What did you tell her?" "That you're helping with the kids, that it's working out." "That's it? What else is there to say?" Lena looked at him in the darkness, trying to read his expression. "I don't know, maybe that this whole situation is kind of unusual? That you're letting a complete stranger live in your house? You're not a stranger anymore." 6 weeks ago I was. 6 weeks ago you were someone who needed help. Now you're someone who's helping. The circumstances are unusual, sure, but the outcome is good. The kids are happier. I'm less stressed. You have a safe place while you figure things out. Everyone wins. Do I, though? Figure things out? What do you mean? Lena set down her phone. I stopped applying for jobs. I haven't looked at apartment listings in 3 weeks. I'm just existing here, in this bubble. And part of me knows that's not sustainable, that eventually I'll have to rejoin the real world and build an actual life. But another part of me doesn't want to. Is that pathetic? It's human. It's avoidance. I'm avoiding dealing with my actual problems by hiding in your guest room and playing house with your kids. You're not playing house. You're actually living. There's a difference. Is there? Ethan shifted, turning to face her more fully. When Emma died, everyone told me I needed to get back to normal as fast as possible. Back to work, back to routines, back to pretending everything was fine. And I tried. I really did. But normal didn't exist anymore. The life I had, the person I was, that was all tied up with Emma. Without her, I didn't know who I was supposed to be. What did you do? I gave myself permission to not know, to just exist in the uncertainty for a while, to let the kids be sad and scared and angry without trying to fix it immediately. And slowly, we found a new normal, not the old one, something different, maybe not better, but livable. How long did that take? I'll let you know when we get there. Lena laughed despite herself. So your advice is to just keep existing in limbo? My advice is to stop beating yourself up for not having everything figured out 6 weeks after your life imploded. Give yourself time. The answers will come. What if they don't? Then you figure it out as you go, same as the rest of us. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Outside, the streetlights cast orange shadows through the windows. A car drove past, its headlights briefly illuminating the room. Can I ask you something? Lena said finally. Sure. That night you found me. Why did you stop? You could have just kept walking, called 911 maybe, and kept going, but you stopped and you brought me here. Why? Ethan was quiet for a long moment. I told you about the security guard, the one who sat with me when I was falling apart. Yeah. What I didn't tell you was that I almost didn't make it through that night. I was sitting in that parking garage seriously considering just ending it. The pain of losing Emma, the responsibility of 3 grieving kids, the company demanding my attention, it all felt like too much. Like I was drowning and no one could save me. Lena's breath caught. Ethan, that security guard, he saved my life just by staying, by refusing to let me be alone in that moment. And I remember thinking, if I ever get the chance to do that for someone else, I will. I'll pay it forward. He looked at her. So when my kids pointed out a woman freezing to death in a bus shelter, and my first instinct was to walk past because it wasn't my problem, I heard Emma's voice in my head, heard her saying, Ethan Mercer, don't you dare walk past someone who needs help. So I didn't. I'm glad you didn't. Me too. The next morning, Kate made pancakes while Lena supervised, catching up on family gossip and asking pointed questions about Lena's plans for the future. Have you thought about going back to school? Kate asked, flipping a pancake with more enthusiasm than skill. School for what? I don't know. Whatever interests you. You said you did administrative work before, but did you actually like it? Lena considered the question. No, I was good at it, but I didn't like it. It was just a job. So do something else, something that actually matters to you. I don't know what that would be. Then figure it out. You're what, 30? Yeah. That's nothing. You have decades to build a whole new career. Emma didn't start med school until she was 28. Ethan didn't launch his company until he was almost 30. You're not behind. You're just starting a different chapter. Sophie wandered in, still in her pajamas, and climbed onto Lena's lap like it was the most natural thing in the world. Are you making pancakes, Aunt Kate? Attempting to. No promises on quality. Lena's pancakes are better. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Munchkin. After breakfast, while Kate and Ethan took the kids to the park, Lena found herself alone in the quiet house again. She opened her laptop and instead of job listings, started researching degree programs. Education, maybe. Social work. Something that involved helping people, using the skills she'd discovered she had over the past 6 weeks. She was deep in an article about child development programs when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Lena Hart? Yes? This is Rebecca Tan from Community Legal Services. You applied for free legal assistance regarding your divorce. I'm calling to let you know we've reviewed your case and we can take you on. Lena's heart jumped. Really? Yes. Your situation qualifies for our services. Can you come in this week to discuss your options? They scheduled an appointment for Thursday. When Lena hung up, she sat staring at her phone, feeling something shift inside her. This was it. Actual help. A real lawyer who could fight for her instead of just accepting whatever Marcus's team dictated. She called Sarah immediately. I got a lawyer, a real one, for free. Lena, that's amazing. I know. I don't even know what they can do at this point, but at least I'll have someone in my corner. You should celebrate. Come out with me and Brian tonight. We're meeting some friends for drinks. Lena hesitated. She hadn't been out socially in weeks. Hadn't really wanted to, but maybe Kate was right. Maybe it was time to start engaging with the world again. Okay, yeah, I'll come. That evening, she borrowed a dress from Kate, who was apparently exactly her size, and met Sarah at a bar downtown. It was loud and crowded and full of people her age doing normal young professional things. She felt out of place immediately. Sarah's boyfriend Brian was nice enough, and his friends were friendly, but Lena found herself struggling to engage. They talked about their jobs, their apartments, weekend plans, and all of it felt foreign, like she was watching their lives from behind glass. You okay? Sarah asked when Lena came back from the bathroom. Yeah, just tired. You've been quiet all night. Sorry, I'm not great company right now. You want to leave? We can leave. But Lena stayed, forcing herself to smile and nod and participate in conversations that felt increasingly hollow. By the time she got home, when had she started thinking of the Mercer house as home? It was past 11, and she was exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical tiredness. Ethan was still up, working at the kitchen table with his laptop and a half-empty glass of whiskey. How was girls' night? He asked without looking up. Fine. Weird. I don't know. He glanced at her then, really looked, and closed his laptop. Want to talk about it? Lena poured herself water and sat down across from him. I didn't fit. With Sarah and her friends. They were all talking about their lives, and I just didn't have anything to contribute. No job, no apartment, no plans. I felt like a ghost. You're rebuilding. That takes time. Yeah, but when? It's been almost 2 months. Shouldn't I have some kind of direction by now? Says who? Some imaginary rule book about how fast you're supposed to recover from trauma? I don't know. Maybe. Ethan took a sip of his whiskey. You want to know what I did for the first 6 months after Emma died? I went to work, came home, stared at the walls, and repeated. The kids had to remind me to eat. Kate practically moved in because she was worried I'd forget to feed them. I was a zombie. Functional, but not really alive. How did you snap out of it? I didn't snap. It was gradual. One day I realized I'd laughed at something Charlie said. Then a few weeks later, I actually tasted my food instead of just mechanically chewing. Small moments of being present instead of just surviving. It took almost a year before I felt like myself again. And even then, it was a different version of myself. I don't know who I am anymore, Lena admitted. I spent 10 years being Marcus's wife. Before that, I was whoever I thought I was supposed to be. I've never just been me. So maybe that's what this time is for. Figuring out who you are when you're not performing for someone else. That's terrifying. Yeah, but also kind of exciting, isn't it? Lena considered that. The idea of building a self from scratch, without reference to anyone else's expectations or desires. It was terrifying. But Ethan was right. There was something exciting about it too. Thursday came and she met with Rebecca Tan, the legal aid lawyer. Rebecca was in her 40s, practical and direct, and she listened to Lena's story without judgment. The prenup is enforceable, she said finally. I won't lie to you about that, but there are a few things we can push back on. The timeline, for one. He gave you essentially zero notice before evicting you. That's not legal, prenup or not. We can make that uncomfortable for him. I don't want to make it uncomfortable. I just want it over. I understand, but you also deserve to walk away with something. You contributed 8 years to that relationship. You should get more than just your personal belongings. They spent an hour strategizing. Rebecca was confident they could negotiate a better settlement. Not much, but enough to give Lena a cushion to start over. Enough to matter. One more thing, Rebecca said as Lena was leaving. Your husband and his lawyer, they're banking on you being too overwhelmed or too broke to fight. They think you'll just sign and disappear. The fact that you're here, that you got representation, that changes the dynamic. Don't underestimate how powerful that is. Lena left the office feeling lighter than she had in months. She had a lawyer. She had options. She wasn't completely powerless. When she got back to the house, she found chaos. Ben was in the middle of a full panic attack, hyperventilating on the living room floor, while Ethan tried to talk him down. Charlie and Sophie were watching from the stairs, scared. What happened? Lena asked, dropping her bag. Science test tomorrow, Ethan said shortly. He's convinced he's going to fail. Lena knelt beside Ben, who was gasping for air, his face red and tear-streaked. Ben, look at me. Can you look at me? He shook his head, eyes squeezed shut. Okay, you don't have to look, but I need you to listen to my voice. Can you do that? A tiny nod. Good. Now I'm going to count, and I want you to breathe with me. In for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4. Ready? In, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. She repeated the pattern, keeping her voice steady and calm. Ethan joined in, his deeper voice providing a foundation. Slowly, gradually, Ben's breathing started to regulate. 10 minutes later, he was calm enough to talk. I can't remember anything, he said, voice hoarse. I studied all week, but now it's all just gone. My brain is empty. Your brain isn't empty, Lena said. It's overwhelmed. There's a difference. What's the test on? Cellular biology, mitochondria, ribosomes, all that stuff. Okay, what does the mitochondria do? It's the powerhouse of the cell. Ben answered automatically, then looked surprised. I knew that. Because you studied. The information is there. Your anxiety is just making it hard to access. So let's practice accessing it. Tell me about ribosomes. They went through the material piece by piece, Lena asking questions, Ben discovering he actually did know the answers. His confidence slowly rebuilt. By the time they were done, he was breathing normally, the panic attack fully passed. Thanks, he said quietly. I thought I was going to die. You weren't going to die. Panic attacks feel like dying, but they're not dangerous, just scary. It happens a lot. I know, your dad told me. Do you think I'm weak? What? No, why would I think that? Because I freak out over stupid stuff like tests. Normal kids don't do that. Lena sat beside him on the floor. First of all, panic attacks aren't about being weak. They're about having an overactive threat response system. Your brain thinks a test is a saber-toothed tiger and reacts accordingly. Second, lots of kids have anxiety. You're not alone. And third, the fact that you keep trying even when you're scared, that's the opposite of weak. Really? Really? Brave isn't not being scared. Brave is being scared and doing it anyway. You're braver than you think. Ben leaned against her shoulder, and she put an arm around him. Across the room, Ethan was watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read. That night, after everyone was in bed, he found her in the kitchen making tea. That thing you did with Ben tonight, the breathing exercise, where'd you learn that? Internet mostly. I used to get panic attacks in college, learned some coping mechanisms. You never mentioned that. It didn't seem relevant. It's relevant if it helps you understand what he's going through. Lena poured hot water over her tea bag. I'm not trying to overstep. With the kids. If I am, tell me. You're not overstepping. He paused, searching for words. You're exactly what they need, what we need. Ethan, I mean it. Emma used to handle all of this, the panic attacks, the homework struggles, the emotional stuff. I was always the secondary parent, the fun weekend dad who swooped in for soccer games and movie nights. She was the foundation, and when she died, I had to become both, and I'm not good at it. I can't read them the way she could, can't anticipate what they need before they melt down. But you can. I'm just paying attention. It's more than that. You have instincts with them, natural instincts, and they trust you. That's not something you can fake. Lena didn't know what to say to that. She sipped her tea, feeling the weight of his words. Rebecca thinks she can get me a better settlement, she said, changing the subject. From Marcus? Not a lot, but something. That's good. Yeah, it means I'll have actual money. Enough to maybe, I don't know, do something, figure out next steps. Like what? I've been looking at degree programs, education, maybe, or counseling. Something with kids. Ethan's face lit up. Lena, that's perfect for you. It's expensive and time-consuming. I'd need to work while going to school, which means I couldn't help here as much. We'd figure it out. If that's what you want to do, we'd make it work. You say that now, but I mean it. You pursuing your actual dreams isn't an imposition. It's what should happen. Dreams. Lena turned the word over in her mind. She'd stopped thinking in terms of dreams years ago. Somewhere in her marriage, she'd reduced her aspirations to just getting through each day without conflict. But maybe it was time to dream again. I'll think about it, she said. Good. They stood in the kitchen, drinking tea in comfortable silence, and Lena realized this was what she'd been missing her entire adult life. This ease. This sense of partnership without pressure. This feeling of being seen and valued for who she actually was, not who she was supposed to be. Marcus had never asked her about her dreams. Ethan asked all the time. 3 months after the night in the bus shelter, Lena's divorce was finalized on a Tuesday morning in a courthouse that smelled like floor wax and old coffee. Rebecca had negotiated a settlement that gave her $12,000. Not life-changing money, but enough to breathe. Enough to start. Marcus didn't show up. His lawyer handled everything, sliding papers across a table for signatures that felt like they should mean more than they did. When it was done, Lena walked out into spring sunshine feeling nothing. No relief, no sadness. Just a quiet sense of closure, like finishing a book she'd lost interest in halfway through. She called Ethan from the courthouse steps. It's done, she said when he answered. How do you feel? Empty. Is that weird? No, it's honest. I thought I'd feel something, free maybe, or angry, but I just feel blank. Give it time. The feelings will catch up. She sat on the steps watching people flow past, lawyers in suits, families there for custody hearings, a woman crying while a man tried to comfort her. All these lives in transition, all these endings and beginnings happening in the same building. Lena? Ethan's voice pulled her back. You still there? Yeah, sorry, just thinking. About what? About how I sat in that bus shelter, convinced my life was over. And now I'm sitting here realizing it's actually just starting. She could hear his smile through the phone. See? Progress. That evening, the kids insisted on celebrating. Sophie made a card that said, "Congrats on your divorce," in crayon with flowers around the edges. Charlie baked cookies that were slightly burned but edible. Ben had researched divorce statistics and presented her with a graph showing that divorced people were statistically happier 5 years post-divorce than they'd been in their marriages. That's supposed to be encouraging, he explained when she laughed. It is, in a very Ben way. They ate the burned cookies and watched a movie. And somewhere in the middle of it, Sophie fell asleep with her head on Lena's lap and Charlie leaning against her shoulder. Ben sat on the floor at her feet, and Ethan was in the armchair, and it hit Lena that this was her family now. Not by blood or marriage or any legal document, just by choice, by showing up every day and being present. 2 weeks later, Ethan came home early on a Friday with news that shifted everything. "I need to talk to everyone," he said, gathering the kids in the living room. Lena started to leave, give them privacy, but he gestured for her to stay. "You too. This affects all of us." The kid settled on the couch, immediately picking up on the seriousness in his tone. Sophie climbed into Lena's lap without thinking about it, a habit she'd developed over the months. "So," Ethan began, then stopped, ran a hand through his hair, started again. "The company's been doing really well, better than expected actually, and we've gotten an offer from a firm in Seattle. They want to partner with us on a major project. It's a huge opportunity, but it would require me to be out there for at least a year, maybe longer. Possibly relocate." Silence. Then Ben asked the question they were all thinking. "Would we have to move?" "That's what I need to talk to you guys about. We have options. I could commute back and forth, but that would mean I'm gone a lot. Like, really gone. Most of the week. Or we could all move to Seattle. New city, new schools, fresh start." "I don't want to move," Charlie said immediately. "All my friends are here." "I like our house," Sophie added, burrowing deeper into Lena's arms. "What about you, Ben?" Ethan asked. Ben was quiet, thinking. "Would the Seattle schools have better science programs?" "Probably. The one I've been looking at has an advanced STEM track. Then maybe it wouldn't be terrible." "This is a family decision," Ethan said. "We all have to be okay with whatever we choose. No one gets left behind." Charlie crossed his arms. "What if we vote and it's not unanimous? Then we keep talking until we find something everyone can live with. That could take forever." "So we take forever." Lena felt Sophie's breathing against her chest, felt the weight of this moment. This family making a decision together, everyone's voice mattering equally. It was so different from her marriage, where Marcus had made pronouncements and she'd adjusted accordingly. "Can I say something?" Lena asked quietly. 4 pairs of eyes turned to her. "I think you need to consider what's best for the company. For your career, Ethan, this sounds like a big opportunity. It is, but it's not worth it if it destroys my family in the process." "It won't destroy anything. You're all strong enough to handle change." "What about you?" Sophie asked, twisting to look up at Lena. "Would you come with us?" The question hung in the air. Lena looked at Ethan, saw something flash across his face. Hope, maybe, or fear. "I don't know if that's—" she started. "Why wouldn't you come?" Charlie interrupted. "You live here. You're part of this. I'm helping out. That's different from—" "Your family," Sophie said with the absolute certainty of a 6-year-old. "Family goes together." Ben was watching her with that analytical stare. "Do you want to come, if we asked you to?" Did she? The question was bigger than it seemed. Saying yes meant admitting this wasn't temporary. Meant choosing this family, this life, this future. It meant stepping fully into something that still scared her because it mattered so much. "I'd have to think about it," she said carefully. "That's not a no," Ben observed. "No, it's not a no." That night, after the kids were in bed, Lena found Ethan on the back porch. The yard was dark except for the soft glow of landscape lighting, and the air smelled like spring, wet earth, and growing things. "Sorry if the kids put you on the spot," he said when she sat beside him. "They don't really understand boundaries. They understand that I care about them, and they care about me. That's not crossing boundaries. That's just being honest." "Still, the Seattle thing, that's a lot to ask." "You didn't ask. Sophie did." "Semantics." Lena drew her knees up, wrapping her arms around them. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "What do you want? Not what's best for the company or the kids or anyone else. What do you actually want?" Ethan was quiet for a long time. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. Wind rustled through the trees. "I want to take the job," he said finally. "It's the kind of challenge I've been looking for, the next level. But I also want my kids to be happy. And I want—" He stopped. "Want what?" "I want you to come with us." The words settled between them, honest and vulnerable. "Why?" Lena asked. Because you're part of this family now. Because the kids need you. He paused, then pushed forward. Because I need you too. Not just for the help with the kids, though that's huge, but because you make everything better, easier, more manageable. And also because somewhere in the last few months, you became someone I can't imagine my life without. Lena's heart was pounding. Ethan, I'm not asking you to be anything you're not ready to be. I'm not proposing or declaring undying love or anything dramatic. I'm just being honest. You matter to me, to all of us. And if we're going to uproot everything and start over in a new city, I'd really like you to be part of that. That's a lot of responsibility. I know. What if I screw it up? Then we figure it out together, same as everything else. Lena looked at him, really looked, saw the exhaustion that never fully left his eyes, the stress line that had gotten deeper over the months, the silver starting to thread through his hair at the temples. He was 32 and looked 40, worn down by responsibility and grief and relentless forward motion. But he was also kind, patient, honest, the kind of man who'd rescued a stranger from a bus shelter because his kids asked him to. The kind of father who'd put his career on hold for 3 years to make sure his children were okay. I'd need to enroll in school, she said. If I came, I've been looking at programs and I found one in Seattle, actually. Early childhood education. It's a 2-year program. We'd make it work. I'd need my own space. Not forever, but initially. Some independence. The house I've been looking at has a separate apartment over the garage. It was built for a live-in caregiver. It could be yours. You've been looking at houses? I've been researching, just in case. You're very thorough. I like to plan ahead. Lena smiled despite herself. Okay. Okay, what? Okay, I'll come. To Seattle. With all of you. But I'm enrolling in that program. And I'm taking the apartment. And you're going to let me pay rent once I get a part-time job. You don't need to pay rent. Yes, I do. I need to contribute. I need to not be charity. You've never been charity. Then let me do this. Let me be an actual adult partner in whatever this is we're building. Ethan held out his hand. Deal. They shook on it, formal and ridiculous and perfect. The next 6 weeks were chaos. Telling the kids they were moving, Sophie cried for an hour, then got excited about picking out a new bedroom. Packing up the house, sorting through 3 years of accumulated stuff. Lena working with Rebecca to close out the last pieces of her divorce. Ethan flying to Seattle twice for meetings and house hunting. Kate showed up to help pack and spent most of the time interrogating Lena. So you're really doing this, moving across the country with my brother and his kids? Apparently. And you're not dating him. We're not dating. But you want to. Kate, it's obvious to everyone except maybe the two of you. You look at each other like you're trying to solve a puzzle. It's complicated. It's only complicated if you make it complicated. You like him. He likes you. You're both adults. Do something about it. He's my employer. Kind of. And I'm living in his house. The power dynamics are all wrong. The power dynamics are fine. You're not some helpless damsel. You're a grown woman making choices. If you want to date him, date him. If you don't, don't. But stop pretending it's not an option. Lena threw a wadded-up piece of packing paper at her. You're annoying. I'm helpful. There's a difference. The truth was, Lena had been thinking about it. About Ethan. About what it might be like to move from this careful friendship into something more. But every time she got close to the idea, she panicked. Marcus had burned her badly. The idea of trusting someone again, of making herself vulnerable, felt impossible. 2 weeks before the move, Ben had another panic attack. This one was worse than usual, triggered by the enormity of change coming. Lena found him hyperventilating in his room, surrounded by half-packed boxes. Can't breathe, he gasped. Can't? Yes, you can. You're breathing right now. It just doesn't feel like enough. That's the anxiety lying to you. She talked him through it, the breathing exercises they'd practiced a dozen times. When he'd calmed down enough to talk, he was shaking. What if I can't do this? What if I can't handle a new school, new people, everything being different? Then we'll figure it out. You won't be alone, Ben. You'll have your dad, your brothers and sister, me. We're all going together. But what if you leave? What if you decide this is too hard and you leave? The fear in his voice broke her heart. I'm not leaving. How do you know? Because I choose not to. Every day I choose to be here, to be part of this family. That's not going to change just because we're in a different city. Promise? I promise. He hugged her then, fierce and desperate, and Lena realized the weight of what she'd taken on. These kids had already lost one mother. They were terrified of losing another person who mattered. She couldn't mess this up, couldn't let them down. The night before the move, the house empty except for suitcases and air mattresses. They ordered pizza and ate it sitting on the living room floor. "This is the last pizza in this house," Sophie said solemnly. "There will be pizza in Seattle," Charlie pointed out, "but it won't be the same pizza." "Actually, it will probably be better. Seattle has really good pizza." "How do you know?" "I Googled it." They dissolved into an argument about pizza quality metrics, while Ethan and Lena cleaned up paper plates and napkins. "You ready for this?" he asked quietly. "Terrified." "You?" "Same, but good terrified. Like standing at the top of a roller coaster." "I hate roller coasters." "Then it's a good thing this is a metaphor." She laughed, and he smiled at her in a way that made her stomach flip. "Ethan, I know we're not there yet, but we will be, eventually, when you're ready. You're very confident about that." "I'm confident about you, about us, about what we're building. The rest is just timing." Seattle was rain and mountains and a house that was somehow bigger than the one they'd left. The apartment over the garage was perfect. One bedroom, a small kitchen, enough space to be private but close enough to be available. Lena moved in her meager possessions and felt, for the first time in her adult life, like she was building something that was entirely hers. School started for the kids in late August. Ben's new school did have a better science program, and within 2 weeks he'd made friends with a group of nerdy kids who built robots. Charlie joined a soccer league and discovered he was actually good at it when he wasn't angry at the world. Sophie made friends with every single person she met and declared Seattle the best city in the whole wide world. Lena enrolled in her program and discovered she was good at school in a way she'd never been when she was younger. Maybe because this time she'd chosen it. This time it mattered. She got a part-time job at an after-school program, working with kids from difficult backgrounds. It was hard and heartbreaking and fulfilling in a way her administrative work had never been. Every day she came home exhausted and energized at once. Ethan's project was consuming but exciting. He worked long hours but somehow also managed to be more present than he'd been in New York. Maybe because the fresh start had given him permission to restructure everything, to build a life that actually worked instead of just surviving. 3 months into Seattle, on a Friday night when the kids were at a sleepover, Ethan knocked on Lena's apartment door with takeout from the Thai place they'd discovered. "Thought you might be hungry," he said. "I'm always hungry after work on Fridays." "I know." They ate on her small couch, talking about their weeks. He told her about a breakthrough at work. She told him about a kid in her program who'd finally opened up after weeks of silence. Easy conversation, comfortable silences. The kind of companionship Lena had never had with Marcus. "Can I ask you something?" Ethan said when they'd finished eating. "You know you can. Are you happy, here I mean, in Seattle, with all of this?" Lena thought about it, really thought. "Yeah, I am. I'm exhausted and overwhelmed, and sometimes I have no idea what I'm doing. But I'm happy, actually happy, not just going through the motions." "Good, that's good. What about you?" "Happier than I've been in years. The work is challenging, but in a good way. The kids are thriving, and I get to see you every day, which is..." He stopped, then continued, "which matters more than it probably should. Ethan, I know we agreed to take things slow, and I'm not trying to rush you, but I think you should know that I'm falling in love with you. Have been for months, probably, and I'm okay waiting until you catch up, but I needed you to know." Lena's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it. "I'm scared." "I know. Marcus really did a number on me, made me feel like I wasn't enough, like I was broken." "You're not broken, you're rebuilding. There's a difference." "What if I can't do this? Can't be what you need?" "You already are what I need, just by being here, by showing up every day for me and the kids, by being exactly who you are. I don't know how to do this, how to be in a relationship that's actually healthy. Neither do I. Emma and I were good together, but it wasn't perfect. No relationship is. We just have to figure it out as we go." Lena looked at him, really looked, saw the hope in his eyes, the vulnerability he was offering. This man who'd saved her life in more ways than one. who'd given her space to heal and grow and become herself. "I'm falling in love with you too," she said quietly. "I think I have been for a while. I've just been too scared to admit it." "You're not scared now?" "I'm terrified, but I'm doing it anyway." "That's very brave of you." "Someone once told me that brave isn't not being scared. Brave is being scared and doing it anyway." Ethan smiled. "Sounds like a smart person." "The smartest." He reached for her hand, tentative, giving her space to pull away. She didn't. She laced her fingers through his and felt something settle in her chest, something that felt like coming home. They sat like that for a long time, holding hands, not talking. Outside, rain pattered against the windows. Inside, everything felt warm and right and possible. "So what happens now?" Lena asked finally. "Now we take it one day at a time. We figure it out together. We probably mess up occasionally. But we keep showing up, keep choosing each other, keep building this thing we've started." "That simple?" "That simple. That complicated. Both at once." Lena leaned her head on his shoulder, felt his arm come around her. Safe. Chosen. Home. 6 months later, on a Saturday morning in March, exactly 1 year after the night in the bus shelter, Lena woke up in Ethan's bed. A development that had happened gradually, naturally, inevitably. She could hear the kids downstairs, the usual weekend chaos of cartoons and arguments and laughter. Ethan was still asleep beside her, his face relaxed in a way it never was when he was awake. She watched him for a moment, marveling at the strange path that had led her here. From the worst night of her life to this, to a family she'd chosen and who'd chosen her back. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "1 year divorce anniversary. How are you celebrating?" Lena smiled and typed back. "Pancakes with my family. Then maybe the zoo. Your family, I love that. Me too." She got up, pulled on one of Ethan's t-shirts and her pajama pants, and headed downstairs. Sophie was already at the counter with ingredients spread out. "We're making celebration pancakes," she announced, "because it's been exactly 1 year since Daddy found you and brought you home." "You remembered that?" "Of course I remembered. It's important." Ben wandered in, still in his pajamas. "Sophie's been planning this for weeks. She made a spreadsheet. I wanted to make sure everything was perfect." "Nothing's ever perfect, Soph," Charlie said, but he was smiling. "Perfect enough, then." They made pancakes together, the kitchen filling with the smell of butter and sugar and home. Ethan appeared eventually, drawn by the noise, and kissed Lena's temple as he passed, casual affection that still made her heart skip. After breakfast, they did go to the zoo. All of them, plus Kate, who'd flown in for the weekend specifically for this anniversary. They walked through the exhibits, the kids running ahead and then circling back, a perpetual orbit of energy and questions. At the penguin exhibit, Sophie grabbed Lena's hand. "Are you glad Daddy found you?" she asked. "Every single day." "Good. Because we're glad too. You're the best thing that ever happened to us. Except for Dad. And except for each other. But after that, you're the best." "I'll take it." That evening, after the kids were in bed, Lena and Ethan sat on the back porch of their Seattle house, wrapped in blankets against the spring chill. "A year ago tonight, I thought my life was over," Lena said. "I was sitting in that bus shelter convinced I had nothing left, that I was worthless. And now? Now I know that sometimes the worst thing that ever happens to you is actually the beginning of everything you were meant to become." She paused. "That's cheesy. Sorry." "It's true, though. Emma dying was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but it also forced me to rebuild, to become a different kind of father, a different kind of person, not better or worse than before, just different, more present." "Do you still miss her?" "Every day. But it doesn't hurt the way it used to, and I've learned that you can grieve someone and still build a new life. The two aren't mutually exclusive." "I don't miss Marcus," Lena admitted. "Is that terrible?" "It's honest. You're allowed to not miss someone who treated you badly." "I miss who I thought he was, who I thought we were, but the real him, the guy who threw me out with nowhere to go? No, I don't miss that person at all." "Good." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the lights of Seattle spread out below them. "I've been thinking about something," Ethan said eventually. "Yeah?" "The kids have been asking when you're going to officially move into the main house. Sophie wants to give you her room and take the smaller one. Ben thinks you should have the office converted into a bedroom suite. Charlie suggested we just add an extension." And what do you think? I think they're right. The apartment over the garage made sense when we were all figuring things out. But we're past that now. You're not a guest or a nanny or anything temporary. You're family. You should live with us. Actually, with us. That's a big step. It is, but we're ready for it. If you are. Lena thought about the apartment, her first space that had been entirely hers. It had been important, necessary, a place to retreat and remember who she was outside of everyone else's needs. But she didn't need that anymore. She'd found herself, built a life that was hers, not in spite of this family, but because of them. Okay, she said, let's do it. Yeah? Yeah, but I'm not taking Sophie's room. We'll figure out something else. Ethan pulled her closer, and she settled against him, feeling his heartbeat steady against her ear. I love you, he said. Not for the first time. They'd been saying it for months now, but it still made her chest warm. I love you too. Think we're going to make it long term? I think we're going to try, and trying is all anyone can really do. Above them, stars were starting to appear in the darkening sky. Inside the house, she could hear one of the kids moving around, probably Ben, getting water, her family, her home, her life built from the ashes of the old one. A year ago, she'd been sitting in a bus shelter with nothing. No home, no hope, no future she could imagine. Now she had everything that mattered. Not because someone had rescued her, though Ethan and his kids had certainly done that, but because she'd chosen to accept the help, chosen to stay, chosen to rebuild, chosen to believe she was worth more than Marcus had told her she was. The woman she'd been in that bus shelter had thought her inability to have biological children made her worthless. The woman she was now knew better, knew that family wasn't about biology or legal documents. It was about showing up, about choosing each other, about building something together out of broken pieces. She thought about all the nights she'd lain awake in her marriage, trying to be smaller, quieter, less demanding, trying to be perfect so Marcus wouldn't leave. Now she was loud and messy and imperfect, and Ethan loved her anyway. The kids loved her anyway. Not despite her flaws, but including them. All of her, the broken parts, and the healing parts, and the parts still figuring themselves out. What are you thinking about? Ethan asked. About how I used to think being broken meant I wasn't enough. And now I know that being broken just means I'm human. We're all broken. We're all rebuilding. That's just life. Deep thoughts for a Saturday night. It's been a year. I'm allowed deep thoughts. Fair enough. They sat until the cold drove them inside, then curled up on the couch while a movie played that neither of them really watched. Just existing together, just being. And Lena thought about the security guard who'd sat with Ethan in his darkest moment. About how one person choosing to stay could change everything. About how she'd been on both sides of that equation now, the person who needed saving and the person who helped save someone else. Life wasn't neat. It didn't resolve in clean chapters with perfect endings. There would be more struggles ahead. Ben's anxiety, Charlie's anger, Sophie's nightmares, her own insecurities and fears, Ethan's workload and stress, the normal chaos of life with 3 kids and 2 adults trying their best, but they'd face it together. That was the point. Not perfection, but partnership. Not having all the answers, but being willing to figure them out. 1 year ago, Lena Hart had sat in a bus shelter convinced she was disposable, that her worth was measured in fertility and compliance and making herself small enough to not be a burden. Now she knew better, knew that her worth was inherent, that she deserved to take up space, to have dreams, to be loved for who she actually was. It had taken losing everything to figure that out. Had taken 3 kids pointing at a stranger in the snow and insisting their father help. Had taken a man brave enough to stop, to offer shelter, to see her as a person worth saving. But mostly, it had taken her. Her choice to accept help. Her choice to stay. Her choice to rebuild instead of giving up. That was the real story. Not the rescue, but what came after. The slow, hard work of becoming whole again. Of learning to trust, to hope, to love without fear. She wasn't there yet. Maybe she never would be fully healed. But she was trying. And in the trying, she'd found something she never expected. She'd found home. Not a place, though the Seattle house was beautiful. Not a relationship, though what she and Ethan were building mattered more than she could articulate. But home in the truest sense. a feeling of belonging, of being exactly where she was supposed to be, with people who wanted her there. And that, Lena thought as Ethan's breathing evened out in sleep beside her, was worth every terrible moment that had led her here. Worth the cold, worth the fear, worth sitting in that bus shelter thinking her life was over, because it hadn't been over, it had just been beginning.